Time for Answers Party Line today for your Thursday. That would be March the 22nd, 2018. Answers Party Line is brought to you by Wimmer Opticians St. Cloud, Atlas Family Chiropractic of Wade Park, West Central Sanitation. In studio with us from NRCS, we have Rick Berscheid. We're going to meet Aaron Jans here in a moment, soil conservationist from NRCS. And we've got Dennis Fuchs in studio from the SWCD, Soil and Water Conservation District. Meow to you, Dennis. Welcome, gentlemen. How are you on this Thursday?
Great. Thanks for having us.
Morning, Brad.
Morning.
Fantastic.
Aaron is especially pumped because this is his first time here on the radio, and
It's my first time out of the office.
Why do they keep you cooped up in the office, Aaron? What's the deal?
Improve efficiency.
Improved efficiency. How do you make things more efficient? What do you grease up, and what's the deal?
I grease up all the procedures and policies that we work on for conservation planning. So I am the guy that takes you from start to finish in terms of conservation planning.
So, in other words, you don't clean up Rick and Dennis's messes or anything?
No, I'm the one that creates the messes, and they clean it up for me.
So, Aaron, now this is the first time I've met you, but you've been on staff for how long?
About a year and a half now already.
Year and a half. Yeah, they do keep you cooped up, don't they?
Yes.
We are here to meet Aaron. Aaron, what got you into doing what you want to do here in your career?
In my career, so I did not grow up on a farm per se, but my grandparents had a farm, and we did strawberries and pumpkins, the whole vegetable type crop scenario. And then I actually got a degree in music recording.
Wow.
And never followed through on it, and decided that agriculture was where my heart lied, and I went back and got a degree in crop and soil science, and here I am.
Music, agriculture, to your ears.
Yeah, did you know that actually music helps grow crops? I've read research on that.
I did not know that.
Yeah, music makes happy crops.
Aaron, what instrument do you play?
I was a vocalist.
You're a vocalist, so you can sing to the plant life and stuff.
I did not warm up today, so that would be a touch and go scenario right now.
Oh, you don't need a warm up. If you're really good, you can just go anytime, just like this.
Yeah, not that good.
Not that good. Okay. All right. So we are here to talk some soil conservation stuff, including, I guess there's a new rule out there?
There is. So the Minnesota Department of Agriculture has a proposed nitrogen rule. Back in 2017, they released their first draft of that nitrogen rule, which will restrict fall application of nitrogen fertilizer in select areas of the state. They received over 820 comments last year on that proposed rule and incorporated all those comments into a new draft, which is going to be released here in May.
Okay.
So back in the first week of March here, the governor had a press conference and announced that they've come up with a new draft. They've changed it based on the response from the public, and it will be out for comment here beginning of May. At least that's what they say.
Do you know what's been revised or what's updated?
Yeah,
or?
So the revisions, from what I know, obviously the draft language is not out yet, but
right.
The vulnerable zones have changed across the state. The way they determine those zones have changed. Without getting too technical, they basically have shrunk the zones that are vulnerable. So it used to be based on a township level. So if you had vulnerable soils within that township, you would have a certain restriction applied to you. Now they've taken it down to the quarter section within a township. Mm-hmm. So they've made those zones a lot smaller and shrunk the size of people that will be impacted by the rule.
Did they phrase it so that it's going to be a trial period and then they'll have a chance to revise it if whatever they decided doesn't happen to work out the way they wanted?
There will be right now there's going to be a 30-day comment period.
Okay.
It may or may not be extended based on comments coming from people already. But the rule will be finalized and go into place, I believe, January 2020 is what they're looking for as terms of implementation. Mm-hmm. But we got a ways to go yet. Obviously, they need to review public comment for this second draft and go from there. They'll probably incorporate comments from the second comment period as well. Knowing
what you know about it, Aaron, do you find it, is it something that you think, okay, yeah, this is going to work or this needs some work?
Based on the revisions that I've seen, I really truly think it's a common sense workable rule. It's not something out of left field. It's very science-based, and I think it's workable. Obviously, it's going to be a change. It's going to be different. Change is difficult for a lot of people, but nitrate pollution in groundwater is a serious concern, not only in Stearns County, but in the state, and I think we really need to try and do something, and this is a common sense approach, essentially.
So what are some common sense alternatives to using that?
A common sense alternative to using
for nitrogen and that kind of thing.
I guess I'm not following the question.
Oh, as far as
Best management practice.
Yeah,
best
exactly.
management practices.
Yeah.
So basically, the restriction is on coarse textured soils, and coarse textured soils. The definition of that is based on the NRCS definition of coarse textured soils. And if we're applying nitrogen to coarse textured soils in the fall, it's not really considered a best management practice because you're putting all your eggs in the basket in the fall, and sandy soils or coarse textured soils tend to leach nitrogen very efficiently or very quickly. So you're basically wasting your money by putting nitrogen on in the fall.
Right. Okay. All right. Anything else about that you want to cover?
No, I think that's a brief overview. I would say if you do have comments, make sure that you stay present and aware of the whole nitrogen rule coming out, and make sure your comments are heard because they do take that into consideration.
Just one last quick question. As far as implementation, you said it's going to be implemented exactly when?
They do have a timeline. MDA does have a timeline on their website, and I did bring a copy of that.
So there will be stages of implementation, or just one major, it's got to be ready at this time?
Fall fertilizer application prohibition goes into effect January of 2020.
Okay.
So the rulemaking process is typically a 3-year process. It started in June of 2017, and it will not be implemented until January 2020.
Okay. All right. Very good. What else is happening, gentlemen?
Well, we just want to recap. We had our Farmers Fair here this last month, and we had an excellent turnout. We had about 140 people attend.
140, yeah. It was a fantastic day. We had that at the Roscoe Roadside Tavern, and we were able to put the speakers on one side, and then on the other end of the facility, we had vendors available to answer questions, and had a great lunch out there. And somebody won a Fleet Farm gift card, which was awesome. It encouraged people to stick around until the show was over, but not a lot of people stuck around for a beer. I know I had to head out early, and I know we were going to share information, but I wasn't going to share my beer.
I didn't see that on the schedule of events, the after-hours party.
They said refreshments at 4 o'clock. Yeah.
Got it.
You know what that means in Stearns County.
Well, of course, sure.
And Randy even made it out there and interviewed a few producers on the radio. So if you weren't there, I hope you had a chance to listen to it.
Yeah. So this is something that will continue.
Yeah, and one of the things that we were visiting with the attendees is, should we merge it and combine it with the Central Minnesota Farm Show? But it seemed like most of the attendees felt that it was better to have it separate.
Like a standalone deal, yeah.
Yeah, and we could focus a little bit more on some of the conservation topics, like soil health and reduced tillage and various other components of conservation, instead of bringing it over to Farm Show. There's so much stuff going on at the Farm Show that it and we did have a booth there also, and we thought that was very effective. Visited with a lot of your listeners there. And just reaching out to people and letting them know that we're here to help, it seems like it's been very, very valuable.
All right.
Do you want to take a break here? We got
about a minute and a half or so.
Okay. Well, I just wanted to remind your listeners that soil water conservation districts are all for voluntary conservation. We're one of these agencies that like to provide incentives and voluntary approaches to solving our natural resource concerns. We got a private land focus. If you're talking state or federal, then you need to talk to some other agency to assist you. We're co-located with the one and only Natural Resources Conservation Service with the federal government under USDA. And we meet local needs. We actually have a local work group process coming up here April 10th, and we've got some people invited to that to attend, to share what their resource concerns are. And those folks will help us decide how we should be spending our federal dollars in Stearns County and in the region. So that is very, very beneficial. Do I got a minute yet?
About 50 seconds.
50 seconds. All right. Then I just want to touch on this one very other critical point called technical expertise. The folks in our office are trained. Aaron is working on becoming a certified conservation planner. We follow the field office tech guide.
I just got certified as a conservation planner last week.
You know what that means?
What does that mean?
We celebrate.
Oh, refreshments. Refreshments. All right.
So I just wanted to remind our listeners that that's what the SWCD is about, and we do not have taxing authority. We get funds from our local county, Stearns County officials, and then we also leverage state and federal funds and other funds to help pay for staff and projects.
Perfect. More from Dennis Fuchs, Aaron Jans, and Rick Berscheid after we get back from our news break. It is 9:30 Minnesota News Network. It's Chasm Radio, your dependable neighbor. Answers Party Line continues here for your Thursday. My name is Brad Melke. Good morning. In studio with us from NRCS, we've got Rick Berscheid, we've got Aaron Jans, and from the SWCD, we've got Dennis Fuchs with us. Dennis, you were traveling. You went to the Capitol.
Yeah, actually, I want to first share the story with our state capital, and then I'll move into our national capital in D.C. March 12th and 13th, myself and the Stearns Soil Water Conservation District Board, which includes Tom Gregory, Dave Brinkman, Dave Weller, Arlen Lorenz, and Chuck Uphoff, went to visit with our legislators down at St. Paul. And we got down there Monday afternoon and got to meet a few of our legislators that day. And then on Tuesday, we had 9 appointments with our local representatives here in central Minnesota. And we talked to them about a variety of issues. And as you know, the local SWCD board is elected to help promote and set policy at the state, national, and local level that helps protect and sustain our natural resources and ag systems here in central Minnesota. And some of the things that we visited with our legislators in Minnesota included SWCD funding authority. SWCDs do not have taxing authority, and it's something that some of the SWCDs would really like to see that option available. Stearns County has been very beneficial in their support as a partner to the Stearns SWCD, and it's something that we probably won't pursue, but there are other SWCDs scattered across Minnesota that really could use that extra boost to maintain that technical assistance to help their landowners solve their resource concerns. We also talked about general fund appropriations. There was some of the clean water fund got pulled into the general fund, and if there was going to be a surplus, that there now is a surplus, those funds would get shifted back into the clean water fund. And we talked about that, and we really want to use those dollars to help landowners address resource concerns and also irrigation water management and other things that would help us do a better job out there. And we also talked about bonding for CREP. CREP is the Conservation Reserve Enhancement Program. It's a combination of CRP and RIM, and we've got a significant investment by the USDA to support this program. That significant investment also required a significant investment by the state of Minnesota, and we were encouraging our legislators to move forward with the governor's proposal of $30 million to provide that for that program, CREP. And that's a permanent easement program, and we don't see a lot of interest in Stearns County, but they really are trying to target this program for our most sensitive landscape features such as wetlands, riparian buffers, and source water protection areas, which are also known as drinking water supply management areas, and setting aside some of those areas of our most sensitive features on the landscape. So there is some opportunity there for additional dollars, and we're really hoping our legislators support that. And then also there's recommendations from the Clean Water Council and the Outdoor Heritage Council, and those recommendations go to legislators where there's a variety of different programs and projects that get funded through that, and we just supported what came out of those councils that were really good recommendations. And you have these councils and committees put together, and you got people coming together to take time out of their daily schedule to make a recommendation to the legislators. And you really hope the legislators recognize the importance of those folks. So if the legislators start messing around with their recommendations, you kind of feel like your time wasn't very well spent. So anyhow, we also push for that. So that was a full day of meetings on Tuesday. And then this past Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, the National Association of Conservation Districts has a NACD fly-in to Washington, D.C., and I flew out on Monday after work, got there about 11 o'clock, and I got to share a story.
Sure.
So I get there, and first off, when I get to the airport, after I get through security, taking your shoes
Did you
off.
have to take your belt off?
I did.
Oh,
I
love that.
Some people didn't. I don't have a big belt buckle, but I figured I might throw it off anyhow, just because I'm a big waisted guy. But so anyhow, I made it through security, get the shoes back on, and I'm walking to my gate, and shoot, I forgot my notebook in the car. Well, that's right. I forwarded the travel information and the hotel information to my personal phone, so I had that. And okay, well, we'll be fine. So I get to D.C. and we land at the Reagan airport, and I'm doing a Uber. That's an app on your phone, and you
Right.
say you want to get picked up, and then you say where you're going to go. Mm-hmm. And I said the Residence Inn Marriott, and okay. Well, I get to this Residence Inn Marriott, and it's not the one I belong to.
It's the wrong one.
So I get out and I go inside the lobby to see if I can get checked in, and my Uber driver, he's basically throwing my luggage at me, saying, I got another ride I got to pick up. You're going to have to figure this out. Okay, see you later. Well, then I tried doing another Uber drive. Well, my credit card was no longer accepted because I did 2 Ubers right in a row.
Oh.
So then I ended up using Lyft. It's another service very similar to Uber, and I ended up getting to the right hotel.
Good.
I got there about 11:30. So it was quite an adventure. And then on Tuesday, we had a briefing in the morning, and then we actually met with a bunch of our Congress folks, including Nolan and Colin Peterson, Tina Smith, Emmer, Amy Klobuchar. Trying to think who else am I missing on that. Colin Peterson. Oh, and Tim Walz. We had to split our group up. We had 6 of us out there. From I was the SWCD staff person. We had Ian Cunningham from Pipestone SWCD. We had Doug Thomas from the Board of Water and Soil Resources, the state agency that oversees local units of government, the grants. And then we also had Curtis Elke, the acting state conservationist for NRCS. And then also Leanne Buck. She's the director of the Minnesota Association of SWCDs, and Emily Javins, who's also an elected official and a NACD Northern regional rep. So we had our meeting with the NACD, and we talked about some of the things that we wanted to visit with our Congress folks about. And some of those things included, just maintain the conservation program funding. Back in 2014, the Conservation Title II had a $6 billion cut, and that was enough for quite some time. For this Farm Bill, we'd like to see no more cuts, and maintain the same level of funding at a minimum, and try not to take any more out of it. We also talked about keeping EQIP and CSP, and also keeping them separate. There has been some talk about merging the two, and staff here locally and folks have mixed opinions on that, but I think it's very important that we have some programs there and some flexibility in how we use these programs. And they also talked about the Regional Conservation Partnership Program, which we are leveraging here in Stearns through the Minnesota Ag Water Quality Certification Program, the Certainty Program. If you get run through an assessment with Mark Lefebvre or Grant Pearson here locally, and you identify resource concerns, these funds through the RCPP, Regional Conservation Partnership Program, are available to help get those resource concerns addressed. We also talked about, and you're going to love this, repeal the Sam Duns requirements. I think that's nationwide. Everybody is up to their ears with that Sam's Duns, and then also some of the confusion associated with, because that's public information. You get emails from folks saying, "Hey, we can do your Sam's Duns renewal, and it only costs you $50," and so they're just going to eliminate that down the road here. They also talked about supporting watershed programs and some of the 319 funding. That's the EPA funding. A lot of times we work with our local watershed districts and capturing those funds to get them back to our landowners. We also talked about CRP, and we did run across Colin Peterson, and it looks like right now the Farm Bill is kind of on hold, and basically because of the nutrition program associated with it. I think everybody was okay with his recommendation to increase CRP from 24 million acres to 30 million, but there's going to be no additional money. So how are you going to do that? And his proposal was to reduce the rental payment to 80% of the county rental rate, which so it would reduce it a little bit. And some folks asked me what I thought of that, and I just said, well, if you're a landowner and you're renting out your land and you got an option of getting paid from the farmer at 80%, or if you have a producer that's trying to make money in this ag economy and can't afford to pay you your rent, you might want to take the 80% instead of zero. So I think there are some value to being a little bit lower than the rental. They also talked about removing some of the incentive payments, and I'm not exactly sure what those are, but maybe Rick could talk a little bit about the CRP.
Right. So right now on some of the continuous CRP practices that we sign up for, such as buffers or wetland restorations, they give you a signing incentive payment, and then there's also an additional cost share payment. It's called a practice incentive payment. And they're looking at reducing those or eliminating those to make up the extra acres. Since they're not going to have any increase, they got to balance it, and those are ways to make that math work out.
Okay.
And then another thing that we talked about is just making sure that we fund the conservation technical assistance component. This is the funds that goes toward NRCS staff, and providing technical assistance to our producers. And this is kind of unique because it's just in this area called conservation technical assistance. A lot of other departments, they have salaries and fringe, and well, for NRCS it's much different, and it's through this conservation technical assistance, and it's easy to pull from that fund if you don't really know what it's good for. And so we're definitely visiting with our Congress folks to let them know that that's what helps pay for our partners' salaries, and keeping them active and providing that much-needed technical assistance here locally. We also talked about some of the staffing needs. The amount of NRCS staff in Minnesota in 2010, we were at about 420 staff, and now we're down to about 230. And we've seen significant delays in helping our producers address their resource concerns with some of the requests. And it's just very important that we have our partners. The Stearns SWCD can only do so much. We need our federal partners to help us with the federal components and the federal programs and the federal contracts, stuff that they have expertise in. And we like to learn the technical stuff out in the field and work side by side with them out in the field. But there's some of that stuff that we need our federal partners, and they're part of a $411 million industry that supports over almost 3,300 jobs here in Minnesota. And as you know, a lot of these, say we're doing an ag waste system, and a producer receives some environmental quality incentive program funds to help offset the cost of addressing their manure management system. Or installing a manure management system. And those funds just don't go into the landowner's pocket. It goes into our local contractor, the concrete folks, the dairy folks, and it just keeps multiplying as you move that around. And not only are we protecting our natural resource, we're also helping that producer become more efficient in utilizing those manure and nutrients on his field, because we also develop a comprehensive nutrient management plan. And the feedback loop is huge, and the value added in investing in conservation is huge. So these are some of the stories we shared when we were out in Washington, D.C., and I think we had a very warm response from the folks. I think the conservation Title II of the Farm Bill there's a fair amount of agreement across all 50 states represented. It's when you start talking about the nutrition, the food stamps, and how people should access those. That is where the Republicans and the Democrats don't agree on how to provide that to our people that need those items.
So you found that you felt you were well received when you visited the camp.
Yeah, we did. And we actually Tuesday evening we had NACD, National Association of Conservation District reception, and Bill, I'm going to get his last name, Northby, who's just recently been approved as Undersecretary of USDA, and he was there, so I got a chance to visit with him. And of course, I always got to put a plug in for Stearns, because we are one of the best in the world, I would like to say. And I told him, if you want to see a USDA service center functioning at a Super Bowl level, you come to Waite Park, Minnesota.
Wow. A lot of pressure there.
So he gave me his card and said, well, send me an email and we'll get something lined up. So if we do, we'll make sure we get Chasm Radio there, too. And
Sweet.
We can talk a little bit about some of the things that he's working on down in D.C. He's originally from Iowa and had a lot of support from the commodity groups to be there. He's very big supporter of conservation, and I'm glad to see he finally got appointed. He said he's been renting an apartment since October, and he hasn't had to use it because he hasn't officially been appointed until last month. So very good. You wanted to cover one thing there, Rick?
Yeah, I just wanted to go back to what Dennis said about conservation technical assistance. That is our foundation of all of our planning. Everything we do, we start out with technical assistance. We develop a plan that works for you and your operation, and then we try to find a program to assist you to implement that plan. And that's a huge program for us, and we just want to make sure that we get a plan that it's going to work out for you and it's going to be sustainable and it's going to help you with your operation. And I'd just like to remind the listeners now, if you're thinking about doing a project here coming up, we encourage you to come into the office now so we can start that planning process early so we can get the plan developed here before any of our upcoming sign-up applications for FY 2019. I know it sounds like a long ways out there, but it'll be here before you know it. Our EQIP sign-up the last few years has been in August, so we do a lot of the planning now until August. So if you're thinking about adding cover crops to your rotation, looking at doing something with your egg waste system, just come on in, see us, and we can start gathering your information and get out in the field and get a good plan put together for you.
Is your schedule fairly open right at this point? I mean, are you booked up with that type of a planning yet? Or?
The sooner you come in, the better. It all depends on the complexity of the project. If it's something that's fairly straightforward, then we can get to it quicker than if it's a more complex project like an egg waste where it takes several hundred hours to develop the plan and get the design done and get everything completed to that final design component. So if you're thinking about it, just come on in, give us a call, and we'll get you on the list and get to you as soon as we can.
One thing I wanted to add quickly, Brad, is when we were out in D.C. on Tuesday, it was also Ag Day, and we did run across some other folks and ran across Bob Lefebvre and Lucas Ahlstrom with Minnesota Milk, and they also are very excited about. Well, they got a lot of things on their plate, including trade and moving the milk product and improving the industry in general. But they also had on their thing they were sharing with their Congress folks is a strong network of local, state, and federal partners that work with farmers and ranchers to implement conservation practices that continue to decrease U.S. food production carbon footprint while reducing water use and soil erosion. USDA funding and program delivery must continue to better align with local conservation delivery partners. We support Title II programs that ensure dairy farmers have easy access to working lands program like the Environmental Quality Incentives Program. Also, Title II programs need to put more emphasis on nutrient recovery practices and technologies that can continue to remove excess nitrogen and phosphorus from manure to address water quality challenges. So that was some of the information they were sharing. And that latest or the last part there with the technology, they're looking at ways to remove phosphorus and nitrogen from manure and use that in other areas of the country where it's deficient. And there are improving technologies, and that's something that where USDA could have a very important role, and us locally could help implement those conservation practices with our producers.
3 minutes.
3 minutes. Okay. Well,
Speed round.
All right, I got one thing here. If you're in the car or if you have a little bit of time here this morning, there is a soil health cafe chat going on right now at the Hilltop Restaurant in Painesville. This event is put on by the Sustainable Farming Association, and the cafe chat series gives farmers the opportunity to share what they've learned, ask questions, compare notes, and learn from each other. So this is going on right now from 10 until noon at the Hilltop Restaurant in Painesville.
And I just wanted to let folks know that, the Farm Bill probably will not get approved before it expires, so there'll be probably a extension of the existing Farm Bill. And the Farm Bill probably, it'll be after this fall's election, so it'll be next legislative session at D.C. when that happens. And we're a little bit concerned because we've got a ton of CRP, and we're already at the $24 million cap, and we've got a bunch of expiring contracts. I don't know how many we got here in acres. Do you know?
We're a little bit over 4,000 acres, about 250 contracts that will be expiring at the end of this fiscal year, and that's the 9th most across the state.
Wow. So that's a humongous workload, and I know we've got a lot of interest in landowners that have CRP with these expiring contracts. They'd like to re-enroll them, and we still haven't had a lot of information come from USDA on how we're going to manage this. And it's hard for USDA to know if there's going to be a farm bill. Well, it'll mean a different thing than if there isn't a farm bill.
All right. Very good. Guess what? Time's done.
What? God, I had so much more to share. We'll just have to wait for our next show.
To wait till April the 30th, I think.
All right, listeners, did you get that on your calendar? April 30th.
April 30th.
Rick and I will be back. Aaron will not.
Nope, I'll be back in the office.
Back in the
office.
You'll be doing all the conservation planning, so.
Yeah, come on in and say hi to Aaron. He likes that. That kind of gets him away from his desk and up to the front counter.
Cheers him up a little bit. All right. Dennis Fuchs, SWCD, NRCS. We have Aaron Jans and Rick Berscheid. Thanks for your time, gentlemen.
Thanks, Brad.
Got just a few seconds away from 10 o'clock. News is coming up.